I think I really knew when my career was coming to an end. I think it was during the last few years, each contract goes from being 3-year contracts, 2-year contracts, and then they become 1-year contracts, 1-year contracts, 1-year contracts. And you're kind of flying by the seat of your pants a little bit. And I also knew that time was against me. I was in my latter part of my 30s. I was still doing a job as a tight head prop. And I think, you know, there's a place for tight head props at an older age if you can still do your job. But I had a bit of a dilemma between moving to Australia to be with a girl who I'd just met, or staying and bleeding my career out, I suppose. And that was a really tough decision. I'd met a wonderful young lady who I really wanted to be with, and I had to make some tough choices, you know, to draw a line in my career, come to Australia to be with her and just play amateur rugby, or to stay. And I came to Australia. It was the right thing to do. But that last year, knowing the inevitable was going to happen, that was tough, really tough. Those transferable skills that I think rugby gave me, that I needed to hone in order to have a pretty successful rugby career, you know, they've been huge for me. Everything, you know, discipline, the hard working element, focused, goal setting, the list goes on. And I think it's only now that I've finished with rugby that I realise how important they are. You know, everything, having to stay motivated, discipline was a huge one. And, you know, having my own little company now, having to work hard, having to get my backside out of bed every morning, they're big, because I'm ultimately responsible for my own actions now with my own company. And everything that rugby taught me was huge. It's massive, far more important now than I actually thought at the time when I was learning those skills. So they've been hugely important for me. So when it came to retiring, I think my whole transition was tough. Did I struggle? Yes. And I found myself in a very dark place. I struggled badly with depression for 10 to 12 months. And I think it was that period of time when I was coming out of it. And it was a huge test, sort of mentally, physically, also for my family and my friends. And yeah, very, very tough. And I really don't mind talking about it. But I think what it did do is, having gone through that whole transition, however tough it was, has definitely made me a lot stronger and a lot more well equipped. And I think the two things that held me in good stead were having belief and having faith, both in myself. I think in my darkest hours, I'd lost all faith in myself and all belief in myself. And I thought I was a strong person before, but I think I'm an even stronger person now that I've successfully gone through my transition. I think the law of averages and statistics will tell us that 1 in 3, maybe 1 in 4 of us might suffer with some kind of issue as our professional career comes to an end. And I think everybody needs to be aware of this. You know, I hope that the people who are watching this, you might be one of the ones who aren't suffering. But I think it's a case of spare a moment for those who are suffering, and maybe be a little bit more receptive to your colleague, your friend, your teammate, who might suddenly have become quiet, a little bit more withdrawn, because they might be suffering. For me, it was written all over me. My friends and my family knew I was suffering. But then when I came out and people realized that I was suffering, there were so many people who approached me and said that I'm suffering. And I said, I didn't know. I couldn't tell. Because it's either written all over their face or they become the best actors in the world and you don't know they're suffering. And I think as professional athletes, we need to be more receptive to it and and go and ask the question. Go and ask a mate if he's really okay, you know, he or she. But go and ask that question and be willing to reach out to people. And I think it can be huge, and I've done it. I've helped friends, and you don't do it for thanks, you do it because you care. I think when it comes to professional rugby, the demands on the body and, you know, mentally as well, I think they're tough. But if the truth be known, we do have quite a bit of disposable time. And I think if I was to look back, I probably would have used that bit of extra time, those days off, those afternoons off, probably would have used those a bit wiser. And yeah, granted they're your day off for some physical rest, you know, to unplug yourself from the rugby and then chill out. But if I could have had my time again, I think I definitely probably would have done some kind of work experience, maybe done my masters over, you know, part-time over say 3 or 4 years. And I think that would have been a good release in its sense from the game. I don't hold anything against rugby. I think it was a choice of my own, where I probably could have used that time a little bit better. And yeah, hindsight, to use that time a bit more wisely. I think in the early part of my life, going through my teenage years, before rugby was actually even professional, it was still an amateur sport. I was very focused on wanting to play for Wales, to play rugby for Cardiff. And there was still a side of me, an academic side, that I wanted to do well. I wanted to go through school, college, and then go on to university and get myself a degree. And I did that. And it was while I was in university that the game turned professional. And it was between my second and third year. I had an offer to go professional and not do my last year of university. And I actually look back in hindsight and actually go, do you know what? I was glad that I finished my sports science degree. I was glad that I did it. And I think with some of the rugby clubs, you know, especially back in the UK, there's a good emphasis on the youngsters through those kind of academy/Colts years. There's a strong academic emphasis where they can still go to university, still get a degree, still get qualifications. And I think that is huge, purely and simply because not everybody makes it. It can be because sometimes they're just not good enough. They don't develop like they should. All those catastrophic injuries, broken legs, bust up knees, bust up shoulders, all of those. And I think preparing youngsters for a potential career is great, but I think there's a duty of care from rugby clubs and rugby associations to prepare those youngsters as they're going through that transition from school into professional rugby, that they need something. I think it's a case of gifting them with something academically that if their professional rugby career doesn't come to fruition, they've really got something to fall back on. Personally, when it comes to governing bodies, unions, you know, and the people that govern our sport, in my heart of hearts, I don't really think they understand the struggles that a lot of athletes go through. And raising awareness, that's been good. I think that's been spearheaded by a number of athletes, former athletes. And there are some good organizations who are really trying to push that to the forefront. But I think the unions and those governing bodies really need to invest money. I feel it's a duty of care to invest time and money back into those athletes who've given so much to their sport. And it is a duty of care. I really do believe that they need to invest in it. I think it's important that the professional athletes have another focus outside of their sport. You know, the challenges upon the body, both mentally and physically, are huge. And I think it's wise to be able to do something and to challenge yourself in a different aspect, whether it be something academic. You know, I did a sports science degree and it was great. And I've also seen other athletes you know, when I did my degree before I turned professional, they tried to do theirs, you know, during professional rugby, and it worked for some of them. You know, they needed to be dedicated and motivated, you know, to go to the lectures, to do their studies, to do their assignments. But I think it's a good, healthy challenge to have, you know, alongside a professional career. You know, because there is only so much time that you spend training and only so much time that you spend performing. And I think a good, strong, dedicated individual can make time to, and give some time to their studies. You know, and I think it'll help them in the aftermath when, you know, when careers do come to an end, that it'll hold them in good stead. They'll have something tangible to take them on to the next part of their career. When it came to doing my degree, I did a Bachelor of Arts, a BA degree in sports science, and I loved it. It was awesome, but I thought about it. The year prior to starting, I'd started an engineering degree, and I hadn't thought about that. I wouldn't say it was a waste. I then went on off and worked for a year, but I didn't think about the initial degree that I was going to do. I think it is hugely important that athletes think about the degree or the course that they're going to do. It can't just be a tick box. It needs to be something that you want to do. You want to get yourself out of bed in the morning, you want to go to lectures, you want to learn something more about the subject that you're studying. I think it's huge. I think you need to be passionate about it. You know, I see a lot of other athletes who dedicate time to good causes, charities, but it's something fundamentally that they are very, very passionate about. And you need to have that. Otherwise it's going to be a tough old slog for 3 to 4 years doing something that you're not passionate about. I think it's important that as professional athletes, we're very wise with the amount of disposable time that we've got. We need to do something that we are interested in, something that really puts a smile on our face, something that kind of gives us a bit of energy. Besides giving us a distraction from our sport, it's something that we care about, something that we're passionate about. And I don't think we can get caught in the coffee culture club. I think it's a tough one, whereby sometimes we just get caught following the crowd to the coffee shop, to the restaurant, for the smashed avocado on toast. I think we need to be more mindful that it's how many hours we lose just by following the crowd. You know, you can lose 3 hours in an afternoon just drinking cappuccinos, when I think that time could be, you know, better served elsewhere. So maybe do a little diary. Just jot down how many hours you spend in a coffee shop, in a restaurant. I'm not saying don't go to the coffee shop with your teammates or colleagues, but limit it and be wise with your time, because the end of a rugby career comes really quick and you just don't see it coming sometimes. So prepare for the inevitable. Be prepared and think about your transition when you come to the end of your career, because it'll come really quick. As a professional athlete, I think we've got a lot to offer companies and organizations, and I think if we can take the essence of what's made us a successful professional athlete, you know, motivated, disciplined, professional, if we can take all of those and take them on to the next part of our career, I think they can hold us in really, really good stead. And for me, all of those disciplines, all of those transferable skills, they've held me in good stead in the next part of my life. And I always wanted to have my own little company. And I cut my teeth. I did a couple of years of recruiting for a good friend of mine, and I learned a lot. I was so receptive to something different outside of professional sport, outside of training, conditioning, and learning skills that were all rugby related. I stepped out and I polished up on my computer skills, my relationship building skills, and it's been great. And I think the thing that I always had was that ability to engage with people. And that has held me in really good stead when it comes to recruiting. So it just, after 2 years of successful recruiting, it just felt like the natural thing to do. And it was 9 months ago, I set up my own recruitment company, and things are going great. It's all about that relationship piece with the client. And the bit that I love most is working and helping candidates. And I've been lucky enough to help a couple of rugby athletes, and they don't realize what they've got until you actually tell them. Sometimes they don't realize how much of an asset they could be to an organization, and it's huge. And I've taken all of those things and I bring them into my everyday life now as a director of a boutique recruitment agency. Personally, I think as athletes, I think we need to spare some time and really think about what we want to do when our sporting days are numbered. And we need to do something that we're really, really passionate about, because you can't find yourself 2 years, 5 years, 10 years down the line doing something you don't enjoy. The inevitable will happen. Our careers will come to an end. There are very few of us who will go into TV, radio, some kind of punditry, or even coaching, because those tend to be the natural ones, the ones we all gravitate towards. But there's only a few of those roles, and I think we need to accept that maybe we might not get a shot at those roles, and we need to start preparing for something else. And we need to find out what we're really, really passionate about. And for me, it was people, helping people. I do a lot of charity work, and the recruitment piece is probably more about helping really good people, and I get to meet some really, really good people. And if I can help them with their career, then I will, and I get a huge amount of satisfaction from that. So think about, and I think it's a case of, think about where you see yourself in 5 to 10 years' time, and ask yourself the question, am I doing something that I'm passionate about? Something that makes me get out of bed in the morning with a smile on my face. So when my professional rugby career officially came to an end, and that was my last day with Moseley Rugby Club over in the UK, it was my last 6 months with Moseley that I really started getting better. The people at the rugby club were fantastic. They were amazing. They knew my struggle. They were so supportive, and I'm very grateful to the people at Moseley Rugby Club. But what I knew I had to do, I knew I couldn't change my lifestyle too much. I needed to carry on training. I felt that I still needed to have rugby in my life. So when I came over to Australia, I started playing amateur rugby for the first time in my whole life. I played amateur rugby for Waverley Rugby Club, and it was amazing. There was a great family feel to the club of people who turn up and give their all Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday for nothing, for no money, for no reward, except just to play rugby and to give something to the game. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to give something back to the game. So I continued playing, I coached, and I gave something back to the game. And that was huge for me while I transitioned. I still needed to have rugby in my life. I still needed to train, because when I was really struggling with depression, and probably in my darkest hours, I stopped training. And it showed in my physical well-being, it showed in my body, it showed in my performances on the rugby pitch. And I take my hat off to a guy called Kevin Maggs, who used to play rugby for Ireland. He was a coach, the director of rugby up at Moseley, and he was hugely supportive. And he just kept telling me, you'll get through it, you'll be okay, you'll be okay. And I finally started believing that I would be okay. And playing rugby and continuing that and staying active was what helped me. It stopped being about the money, it stopped being about professional rugby, but I stayed healthy, I stayed active, and I kept my hand in with the game. And it wasn't for money, it was for the pure fact that I wanted to give something back to the game that's given me so much. So yeah, part of that transition is to not, for me, I don't think it's to jump out cold. It's to not finish one day and the next day you've got nothing to do with the game, you know, your sport, wherever it might be. Is to make that transition gradual and manageable. And even to the point in the aftermath, I think all of us as professional, as elite athletes, we can all give our game, our sport, we can all give something back. And I think it's really important that we do that, and it can help our transition.